pretty surprising information the other day about the amount of unclaimed money that is floating around in the ether. How does this happen, Catherine?
Wouldn't we all like to get our hands on some of that? Um, so, kind of simply put, when people are planning for their future, some people will write themselves a will, which will give a kind of guideline for what they want to happen to their money should they pass away. And unfortunately, a few New Zealanders don't necessarily get around to writing their will. And so what happens is then nobody knows where you intended for those assets to go, whether that be your KiwiSaver or some money that you've saved in the bank or places you might have invested. And so what then happens is if an organisation or someone who is then administering that will knows who to contact, then they'll try and get in touch with those people to pass on those assets. But in some cases, it's actually not clear who might be entitled to that money. And so then a search is undertaken. And if nobody can still then be located, at that point, then the funds may transition over to Treasury. So what you might have seen in the news was kind of talking about the funds that have been passed to Treasury because those estates didn't have anywhere to go, which is a real shame because I'm sure that's not what the person who had those estates when they were living really wanted to happen. But
So this isn't necessarily just about somebody without any nearest or dearest or somebody passing away without any next of kin. It's that it can be hard to draw a line between the asset and the person who owned it sometimes.
usually it's that we know whose asset it was when they're living, but once they decease, if they haven't written a will,
Ah.
then the law comes into effect. So in essence, there's a legal formula by which we determine who's entitled to an asset. Now, it is usually a next of kin, and there's an application around thinking about children, thinking about partners and spouses, thinking about parents. But the challenge that we have is either we know who that person is, so we know that John Smith is the child, and so we then got to track down John Smith, or sometimes we can't find any next of kin. And so we actually don't know who should then own those assets. So once the person has passed away, they become unowned. And so the question is, can you find someone? And so that's often where we will get a genealogist to try and kind of create a
Wow.
family tree to figure out who
You're
should
kidding.
inherit these things.
Hang on a minute, because I'm sure that this is blowing my mind. So I'm sure this is doing. So you have a genealogist who you contract in when there's a name and no clear, maybe next of kin or just whoever the person might be to try and get these assets to the right person.
Yes. Yeah. So we go through
Wow.
quite a number of steps. So we will put kind of advertisements in the newspaper. We will look at births, deaths, and marriages. We'll look at, and the person who's passed away will go often when their home's been cleared out, they'll have like an address book or cards or personal stationery and stuff like that, thinking about who they've been in contact with. We'll hire private investigators. We use
No
social
way.
media. So it gets quite, because I mean, as a trustee organisation, Public Trust is committed to getting the money to the right people and making
Yeah.
sure they are, entitled. And so the links that we go to make sure that we actually understand are pretty extensive. But
I
to
know
combat that, to avoid all that time and stress, ideally people just write a will in the first place.
I know this isn't where you expected this conversation to go, but have you considered this is ideal fodder for like a TV series? Like
Absolutely. We jokingly refer to ourselves sometimes as heir hunters because we've got an estate where that situation has occurred, so we don't know who's entitled, and so we've been following leads, and it's a little bit like an investigation. So we're actually following leads in Ireland at the moment, trying to track down some cousins because
this is great.
we haven't kind of come out with any names as yet, but we're still going.
Maybe you can come up with who should play you in the TV series then.
I love it.
In all seriousness, though,
Yeah.
obviously the main reason we wanted to talk to you was really just to remind people about the significance of this and to play devil's advocate here for a second as well. Catherine, you don't understand. You see, my family are all lovely and caring and sharing, and they would never dispute anything when I passed away. It's all going to be fine. So why do I need a will?
Well, I think if you have any children in the mix or stepchildren or you are asking a question around how you want to look after your parents who might be aging, you can't actually make an assumption that what you want to happen is what the law says has to happen. And because it is a legal formula, if you believe that all of your assets will go straight to your children, that's actually not necessarily the case. Equally, if you were hoping your parents continue to be able to live in your house, if they've been, multi-generational living, that might not be the case either. So
Whoa.
writing a will gives you a bit of peace of mind around you don't have to make any assumptions. It's really clear what you wanted. And you can also provide for different things like who makes the decisions around where your children go to school and some of those other important things that might come into play. So for my view, from as little as like $69 and an hour spent writing a will online, if that's people's preference, or going to see a local expert that suits you, why wouldn't you give your family that gift and that clarity?
And that peace of mind, because, in a time of grief, but, as I said, you can have the nicest family getting on, but, things happen when people grieve.
They do. And unfortunately, also, everyone has a really strong view about what mum, dad, Auntie Sally, my lovely sister wanted.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, sometimes what I actually wanted and what my lovely sister thinks I wanted might be two quite very different things. And time sometimes plays with the memory a little bit too.
That's a great point. Yeah. If you've ever struggled to buy a Christmas present for the same person in the family, just think about what it involves when it has all their stuff factored in, right? I mean, the great news is, Catherine, with all this too, it's actually really easy, right? It's really easy if people want to do something about this. So if they've listened to us this morning, what's a step that they can take with the public trust to get a will in place?
Start by going to publictrust.co.nz and have a read. You can start online. It's really simple and it's reasonably low cost. And the great news is if you write a will with us, you also get a free update every year. So whether you come in to see us in person in one of our centres or whether you go online, you get the assurance also knowing that when life changes, you can update what you've left and who you've left it to and the instructions you've given. So it's very simple and it'll take you less time than watching your favourite Netflix show.
Hey, thank you so much for joining us as part of the Rhema whānau. We really appreciate your company. And if you'd like to check out more stories like that one, just click here.
In fact, our channel has a whole bunch just like this, stories that can encourage you and inspire you and make you more aware of what other people's lives are like in Aotearoa and around the world. So maybe you could subscribe right here.